introduced to Blair. And I know it was at a Young Professionals, Northwest Indiana up and coming professionals event at a location. And as she always does for those that have ever been to a presentation where Blair gets to speak, she always has everybody do some sort of physical activity to start things off. And I was like, man, I wonder if she's going to do that today, seeing as if we're all sitting in this virtual setting. So we'll see what she does. But let me tell you a little bit about Blair. Blair Milo currently serves as the state of Indiana's first Secretary for Career Connections and Talent, appointed by Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb into the position created by an executive order in August of 2017. Blair Milo serves as the state's chief talent officer as Indiana works to fill an estimated 1 million job openings over the next 10 years. She also serves on the governor's workforce cabinet, a body dedicated to shaping education and workforce training for a 21st century workforce. And as many of you know and remember, Blair also served as the mayor of the city of LaPorte here in LaPorte County. Let's see, back in first elected in 2011, is that right? And reelected in 2015 before leaving that role to serve in the capacity in which she does now for the state. We are so honored to have you with us today and to hear from you and all of the great things that are happening in the state of Indiana across workforce development. So with that, I will turn it over to Blair Milo.
Well, Katie, thanks so much for that introduction. And it's such a treat for me to be with everyone. So many friends that I wish that for so many reasons, I wish that we were able to get together in person. But it's great that we're able to do so here. And I couldn't ask for a better lead-in, Katie, with the setup on, talking about activities, because as many of the friends in the room here know that typically we would start out by doing some physical activity. And sort of the way I've tried to transition that a little bit, and it sort of works, sort of doesn't work, I don't know, is that I encourage folks that if you're sitting, then, and as we're having some of the conversation, please feel free to get up, walk around a little bit. If you, we already got some folks doing arm raises and things like that. You can do some shoulder shrugs. You can move your head around a little bit. I would imagine many of you have a similar type of setup that you spend a lot of time in front of your computer screen throughout the day. And I get to points in the day that I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been trapped here in front of this screen. I have to get up and walk around. So I'm not going to take any offense if you want to if you need to close your video out for a hot second to walk around. Or leave it on, whatever. It's lots of, this is meant to be a fun conversation and hopefully help you feel energized for not only the rest of the day, but the continued opportunities that we have together moving forward. So I'm so appreciative of the opportunity to get to be with you all. So thanks, Katie, for that introduction. Thank you, Lance, for the invitation. Thank you, Jim, for your Master of Ceremonies skills and talents here that you applied. And I thought what might be helpful to share with everybody is just a little bit of some of the things that not only the Career Connections and Talent team has been up to over the last year, but really because of how our work is directly tied to many different partners across the state, then just some of the pieces that have all come together and what we're working towards over the course of the next year and even beyond in many different capacities. So to start off with, I think I'd like to share a couple of stories from last year to lay just some of the foundation of kind of explaining the work that we've been a part of, why we've been focused on some of the pieces that we have been, and then sharing some different resources with that. I want to say that it was probably, I guess I'll start with a story that was from an August timeframe that I had a chance to go out with some folks in Indianapolis that I have been building some relationships with different partners across the central Indiana region. And I had a chance to join some folks one day to be able to help distribute food to some of the areas in Indianapolis that have really been hit, probably before 2019, but or 2020, all of the challenges of COVID-19 then exacerbating a lot of the challenges that we saw there. And I had a day that when we were going out to deliver these food boxes, that we went to some areas where, and I've had the great blessing of being a part of the Navy and seeing a lot of different things across the world, that as we went to these places to be able to distribute some food boxes, I couldn't hardly believe it that there were people coming from every direction to come and receive these different food boxes of fresh produce that we had to be able to offer. And it was just stunning to me to see that this is how things are playing out for a number of people this year, that this is a reality for many, many folks of a day-to-day of having to be able to have access to some foods because of things that are happening across our economy, because of the challenges for people to be able to access different types of resources. And, what led to me even having that experience came before that, that earlier in the summer, I had a chance to start meeting some folks that are serving in leadership positions in a variety of different neighborhoods across central Indiana, that I had started to try and think through, as we're looking at the challenges that are coming, the economic challenges that are coming from the results of a pandemic, then how do we better engage with people where the effects are going to be felt the hardest? And so thinking about where are the places of highest unemployment, that's, as I said, have been exacerbated by some of the challenges of 2020. And that led me to do a lot more research on kind of the data around different types of neighborhoods, understanding the dynamics as to what might be at play overall. And so that led to me finding safe ways, socially distant ways to be able to physically get out from behind my computer screen, to be able to try and have conversations with people in the neighborhoods to understand what is the lived reality for somebody on a day-to-day basis. It may be very different from what I understand, from my background, from my lived experience, from what I see from a data perspective. What is truth for people who are living this in different types of neighborhoods? And that led to building different relationships. And one of the questions that came up there, and why I want to start with this story to explain some of the work that we're doing, one of the questions came up that in these conversations I was having with some of the neighborhood leaders and residents was, I was sharing some of the different resources that our team across state government and across partners throughout the state, quite honestly, even beyond government, so partners in higher education, partners in philanthropy, we're putting together. I talked about some of the different resources we had for education and training components, and different tools to be able to connect up to employment opportunities. Went through kind of the whole gamut of what the state has put together, which I will share with you in just a minute. But I went through a number of these pieces, and Gal said to me, and she said, I really appreciate that you've come out here. This is helpful information. I'm glad to know about it, and you seem like a really nice person. How does this lead to me getting a job? And I really appreciated that question, continue to appreciate it, because as I have the opportunity to continue working with leaders from a state perspective, from a regional perspective, community, then I try to tell that story and share that perspective, because I think it's important for us to think about our work for how it is being felt, and help serve those and have their feedback inform how we not only communicate, but build and design the types of resources that we're trying to ensure meet the needs of Hoosiers in all different perspectives. And so it informed me about, there's great pieces that we have built within our talent system in a whole host of different ways. but are there opportunities for us to think further about how does that last piece get communicated, and how does that direct connection happen for somebody to really think through, well, but how does this lead to me getting a job? Because at the end of the day, what the idea behind Career Connections and Talent, and many of the team members that I get to collaborate with are, it has been, is how are we ensuring people connect up to the career opportunities that are growing across the state of Indiana, and how do we ensure that our business community has access to the really great talent that we have in Indiana and that we're attracting to Indiana, and that all of these different pieces connect overall. And so I share both of those stories to just kind of hopefully paint a picture for you of some of what 2020 has developed, and where we are in some different places, and then share kind of what the Career Connections and Talent team has done as a part of the governor's workforce cabinet and a rapid recovery team that we've worked with Ivy Tech, with Vincennes University, with a number of philanthropic partners, including Strata Education, the Lumina Foundation. Lily has been a part of our conversations as well. A number of state agencies that are all a part of our work to think about how are we ensuring that every Hoosier has the opportunity to connect up to these really great career opportunities, and that our businesses, our economy is able to connect into the tremendous talent that we have. And so what I'd like to do from there is just walk you through one of the tools that we have developed, and this has now evolved since I had those conversations this summer, and since many of the team members have had similar types of conversations in our respective areas of work. And this is a resource that we put together called yournextstepin.org. And maybe you've heard about it, or you may be familiar with some of the program or the initiatives that we put into an effort called Next Level Jobs. This is all wrapped in together because some of what we've experienced, and I would guess that many of you have experienced this as well, is that we have a lot of really great resources across the state, that many of our agencies have done some incredible work of being able to meet the needs and opportunities for people. But it oftentimes gets very hard for people to find all of these different pieces and to know how they all connect. So one of the things we put together is this website called yournextstepin.org. And I'm going to attempt to share my screen here to just kind of share a little bit of what that looks like. And so I'm going to hopefully, there we go. This is the landing page for yournextstepin.org. And it's geared towards anybody who, whether they have been impacted by the pandemic, or maybe it was prior to the pandemic, that may be searching through what are the kinds of career opportunities that I may have available to me. And so this helps someone to be able to start thinking through, what are some of the different educational opportunities that somebody may have access to, and how might they be able to access them. And so somebody can come to this site and be able to think through, well, do I need to connect up with a high school diploma, with a short-term certificate, a college degree? And then you can click into those different areas, and it starts to walk you through some of the different resources to be able to be a part of those different types of experiences, depending on where somebody's starting from. Now, as you see, I'm scrolling down here a little bit because there are other resources that are associated with this as well. And we know that not everybody is starting from a place of thinking through that sort of education component as they're coming to this conversation. And so some people may be looking for connection to the employment resources that are available. But we also know, especially with everything, all the challenges that 2020 has brought forward, there are a lot of questions that people are having to answer before they can start thinking about the employment or education opportunities ahead of time, such as, how am I putting food on the table tomorrow for my family? How am I paying my rent? How am I able to access healthcare? And so we wanted to include access to some of these other resources, recognizing that the governor's workforce cabinet and the Career Connections and Talent folks, all of our teammates, we really focus on the employment and education kind of world, but those are all still very, very closely connected to a lot of other support aspects. So there is this other button here called Other Support, where somebody can come and click in here to be able to find some more information about unemployment insurance, health and wellness, childcare, local supports, that connection right there to 211, which has a lot more information than just this site has about some of the different types of state resources that are associated with those different areas. So trying to make it as easy as possible for somebody who is needing some assistance around different types of things that are certainly that impact their ability to be able to connect up to employment opportunities and education and training opportunities that also support those employment pieces. So I wanted to make sure to be able to first share with you that we built this kind of a resource to be able to support the efforts. There's a whole host of functionality that I don't want to spend our whole time of it being me giving you a tour of a website that all of you are certainly, I think, more than capable, and maybe you've even seen some of this before, to be able to navigate. But there's connections in here to being able to find some employment opportunities that the tool that it connects to can start to tailor that around geography that somebody's in, within education attainment level that somebody has, certain skill sets that somebody may have. So there's a lot of great resources and support that this component here has of the learn more around employment. The expert help piece starts to connect people to maybe you don't necessarily know what kind of career area you might be interested in. Maybe you've got some questions around if I am interested in a career area, I don't know how I'm going to pay for getting the certificate for it, or for a 2-year degree or 4-year degree. How am I going to handle the financial components of this? The expert help here, I'll just go ahead and click on it so you can see it, provides contact information for people to connect up with some career coaching resources with Work One, as well as a team at an organization called Invest Ed, where they can help with, as it says there, college planning and FAFSA help. FAFSA is the free application for student aid and for federal student aid, and that's what all of the higher education or post-secondary institutions use to be able to identify what sorts of financial supports can be used to help an individual. So because oftentimes higher education is much more affordable than somebody may know about, because of just not knowing all of the different resources that may be able to be utilized there. So there's some great folks to be able to talk to there, and we wanted to make sure to list not only, technology components, so you can click the learn more to connect up with somebody, but there's actual phone numbers to call for somebody to have a conversation with a human being to talk through a personalized solution for anybody that's looking for some assistance there. And so this has been a key component of being able to help kind of grow the reach of providing resources, tools for people who are needing some assistance around employment and education opportunities, that we know people have been affected in a wide variety of ways due to just a wide variety of factors, including, industry areas that somebody may have been employed in. And we can go into that if somebody's got some questions about that later. But for the moment, I'll just say that there's just a wide variety of experiences that people are having, but in many ways are sort of exacerbating some different types of trends that we have been seeing previous to a pandemic. And so this has been an effort for us to think through, well, how do we make it easier for Hoosiers to be able to access the different kinds of resources that they may need in order to connect up to education and employment opportunities, especially if they've been impacted by displacement from some of the changing economy that we're seeing this year. And so I wanted to make sure everybody has some insight around this. Again, that website is yournextstepin.org. And so I would encourage you to take a look through it if you haven't been a part of that. And to the extent that you can, if you can help us share that information with folks that you may be engaging with that are struggling to figure out what's their next step. So if you know of somebody that has been impacted by a loss of work, then there's a whole host of resources that are there. And as a part of that, what that website does is, this is getting a little bit into the weeds, but it connects to all the different types of programs that, for the average Hoosier, you don't necessarily know all the names of the programs that we have, and you don't necessarily need to know the names of all the programs that we have. You just want to be able to access the different types of resources. And so that's what that this website is geared to do. It's not perfect yet. This is at least now the second iteration of the first version that we created in June. The second iteration, like I said, now has some different processes that it utilizes on how to be able to connect to some things, and draws upon the information that we learned from people like the lady that I engaged with on the Far East side of Indianapolis, and that we're continuing to talk with to better understand, how do people hear messages? How do you connect with the different types of resources that we have here? As a part of all of this, we did grow some of the initiatives that are represented within there, and so you may have heard about the Next Level Jobs initiative previously. With some of the federal dollars that the state of Indiana received, we were able to grow the access to that. So we increased the number of training types of programs that people are able to participate in. We increased the resources, the tuition components that people were able to access. We also got pretty creative around how we could connect people with the information about these resources. And so one of the things that we did was we figured this out around the August, September timeframe. My dates and timelines are all screwed up that I can't keep track of hardly what day it is, let alone year, all those things. But August, September timeframe, I think it was, we figured out that the Department of Workforce Development has been leading all of the efforts with the unemployment insurance. That's part of their portfolio. Figured out a way to be able to communicate to anyone that had filed for unemployment insurance some information about accessing these different types of resources, and particularly for folks who had filed for unemployment insurance to have some insight around, hey, if you're looking for something different to be able to do, and maybe like an 8 or 12 week type of certificate course to quickly get you pivoted to some different areas that do have growing career opportunities, then here's a way to be able to connect into that, and that there's 100% tuition that covers a lot of these different training experiences. And so they sent direct emails to everybody that had filed for unemployment insurance up to that point to just have some awareness around here's some different resources. We saw a exponential shift in people who were then accessing the website and different resources due to that direct communication with people that had filed for unemployment insurance. There were some additional initiatives that Ivy Tech and Vincennes University had adopted as a part of this process of utilizing some federal money that they had as well to make enrollment a slightly easier process from an administrative standpoint. And so we saw drastic numbers increase there. And what's really been very encouraging to watch is that how this is impacting different populations. And so to just give you a sample of some of the numbers that we've seen with this, the Next Level Jobs initiative is where people can get a certificate in a high wage, high demand field, 100% tuition free. through many of our public institutions across the state. Since that was launched in 2017, the number as of December 1st, 2020, we've had 40,582 Hoosiers who have enrolled in those programs. As of December 1st, almost 20,000 Hoosiers have completed the work that certificate program. So we've got a number of folks who are still participating in receiving those different credentials, but we're tracking not only people that are enrolling, but making sure that folks are able to complete that process as well, to be able to then take that next step of ensuring employment happens. And those are pieces that we're focusing on in 2021 and beyond, of that next sort of placement piece of ensuring, back to the question that the gal had in the park of, well, but how does this lead to me getting a job? There has to be that end cap of, okay, well, this can get you employed at such and such type of industry area, such and such business that can be directly a part of those different kinds of conversations. But interim, what we're already tracking is not only are you enrolling, are you completing, and what time frame are you completing in? So those are the numbers that we have had thus far. The median wage gain that has happened as a result of somebody participating in those has been $6,800 a year per person. So I think certainly a worthwhile investment of time. And I say time because the financial investment is minimal, because it's 100% tuition coverage that's being provided by state of Indiana. And we also work to include federal dollars in that as well. And here's the piece that I want to make sure I touch on, is the diversity of the people who are completing this. And so overall, we have seen 2% completion from Asian population, 15% completion from Black individuals, 4% from Hispanic or Latino, 7% from some of the smaller populations, and then 71% from the white population. I think it's important to communicate that we are disaggregating that data to ensure that we are being intentional of reaching different populations and ensuring that we understand that we're meeting people where they at. And why I want to share those numbers is that you can see that we're actually outperforming some of the proportionality across the state of Indiana for different populations. So we're very encouraged. Certainly lots of work ahead of us still, to be able to address our work in an equitable fashion. But we are tracking that data to ensure that we are meeting the opportunity for all Hoosiers. And I will mention, so those numbers I just gave are for just the Next Level Jobs program. I don't have the updated numbers yet, since we started doing some of those pieces with the Federal CARES Act dollars, and that Ivy Tech and Vincennes University have been tracking some of the disaggregated data. But the early returns that we've seen on that are that the equity numbers are actually even greater amongst the population, and understanding how we're connecting up. And I think a lot of that is attributable to being able to do this direct marketing piece that we did, that I mentioned, and to the shifts in the administrative process of making it really easy for folks to actually enroll. Those of you who are on here that have some background in higher ed and know the FAFSA process, I'll leave it at that it has a lot of great opportunities ahead of it. It connects to important resources, but it can be challenging and intimidating for a number of folks. But this is nothing new that I'm saying here. But what we've been able to work on is how do we make it less intimidating and much more accessible for some folks, and that's where we've seen some incredible transitions there. The other component that I just wanted to mention is with our employer training grant, that we also have been providing some resources to employers in our high wage, high demand industry areas to be able to skill up some new hires or newly trained individuals. And that was another initiative where we grew the resources as a result of some of our federal dollars. And over the course of the last year, then we've seen 11,752 individuals who have been trained. 1,100 participating employers, and average wage gain for somebody who was able to participate there was about $5,900 per year for that person that has participated. Another piece that I want to call out from an equity standpoint is that 20% of the participating businesses have been women, minority, and or veteran-owned businesses that we specifically set aside funds to ensure that businesses that fit into those categories had specific access to some resources. And it's been exciting to see that we've had even greater numbers than we had anticipated. So we're excited about seeing those kinds of results. So wanted to share that. I mean, that's a lot of the work that was done through the Governor's Workforce Cabinet, again, with partners through across higher education, with philanthropy, and many others for and informing our work ahead. There's a whole host of different places I could go that really doesn't even touch on some of the core functionality of where career connections and talent has been. And so that has more to do with sort of getting regions to be able to coordinate with education and business and philanthropy and nonprofits and community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, local government, all coming together to think through how we are attracting, developing, and connecting talent. We may have to just have another time that we get to chat about some of those things. But I just wanted to at least share those results that we've had with you, that resource of yournextstepin.org, so that hopefully if you could help us get the word out to people, particularly those who may be looking for new opportunities, whether they've had a change in their employment status, or maybe they're just curious about what kinds of opportunities may be out there. There's access points to a lot of really great information. And if somebody doesn't want to have to navigate these different tools, then you can call that number, either of those numbers for InvestEd or for that 888 number for the work ones that are there. And there's a person that will be on the other end of the line to help walk somebody through what some options may be. So wanted to share all of those, and I'm going to just probably stop there since I think we've got about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure that I'm allowing time for hearing what you're interested in, and I will share as much as I can with any insights that we have on this end, whether you want to know about the trends across employment right now, whatever it may be. I am happy to be of a resource for any kind of conversation as to where we want to go from here. So thank you, and I'll open it up for questions.
All right, if you have a question that you want to ask, wait a couple seconds so you don't step on somebody else in talking. Unmute your microphone, state your name and ask your question, and then mute your microphone back, and Blair will have a chance to answer. Anybody got any questions out there? Don't forget to unmute your microphone.
While people are thinking of those questions, because it always takes a second or so for the first question, I will just share a fun little joke anecdote that we have. I hope that folks have had opportunities to tune into Governor's press conferences that he's been doing throughout the year, and now he's doing them on a weekly basis on Wednesday afternoons. And you may have heard his press secretary, Rachel Hoffmeyer, who does a phenomenal job of kind of navigating, ensuring all of the different press individuals are able to ask their questions. Well, they've had to sort through all the technology pieces. And so inevitably every Wednesday, there's somebody from the press that then it's their turn to ask the question, but then the audio doesn't come up or something. And so then Rachel Hoffmeyer will have to say, "You may now unmute your microphone." And then she'll address so-and-so, and I'm totally guilty of all of this too. So then she'll repeat, and sometimes it's technology, and she'll say, "You may now unmute your microphone." Well, the joke has become that when that comes up, if you may now unmute your microphone, like, oh, somebody got hoffed. It's just the functionality of where we are in 2020 and all the technology that we're all having to deal with, and it's just one of those fun, like this is the reality. And so, inevitably every Wednesday, somebody's going to get hoffed.
All right, Maggie, I see you have a couple questions. You want to go ahead with those?
Oh, she answered them already. No, he answered the racial equity question. So Blair, I just want to, congratulate you on making some really significant progress. This has been something that Unity's been working on for decades now, and it's really great to see that we can see some change happen at the top or with the institution at the institutional level that we could never get any change from the margins. And we can also stop blaming the students. We've learned so much about, that, as you called it, the talent system. So again, I'm thrilled with your results. I know this is the beginning because we still have, we still have to figure out how we get kids to go to Ivy Tech here. I mean, they're just not going. We have money to give away. We can't give it away sometimes because, the Strata research, which would be a whole nother conversation, where they researched tens of thousands of people to find out what the barriers are to going on to getting more education. And one of them is lack of confidence. They don't think they can do it. And money isn't the biggest thing, it's logistics. So you're taking care of the money thing. Now, how do we get people to feel like they can carve out a couple hours a week to do an online course? And so anyway, I applaud you, and I'm glad to hear about the statistics, and keep going.
Well, thank you, Maggie. And I'm so glad you brought that piece up. In fact, I was just on a call yesterday with some of the team from Strata and former Mayor Goldsmith of Indianapolis as we were talking through some of the reasons behind the work we're trying to do now with community-based organizations and faith-based organizations of recognizing the kind of trust and the relationship that exists with individuals who have some connections there, because there's trust and relationship that government just doesn't have for a wide variety of different reasons that we could have a conversation on. But for the sake of today's purposes, the relationship isn't necessarily there. So we've thought through, well, how might we better collaborate with different partners within sort of that, like I say, the talent system, to be able to engage people, meet people where they are, recognize the relationships and the trust that exists. And through a lot of those conversations, when we've been able to learn some fascinating pieces that as I've been working with some different faith-based leaders, there's a pastor from he was in Indianapolis. He's recently moved to Colorado, where I was chatting with him about some of how they've approached their service work. He was part of Broadway Methodist Church in Indy. And he said, Blair, there's power in celebration. And as he was explaining to me what that meant, he said, when you celebrate the opportunities that people are having, there's an exciting way that people connect in on, what that can mean for them. And to your point about some of the research that Strata has done around self-doubt and self-confidence of people feeling like, oh, this could be an opportunity for me. There's a whole host of reasons and experiences that people have had that inform that thought process of this isn't an opportunity for me. But when you celebrate with someone who is pursuing these opportunities, someone who they can relate to, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's somebody they go to church with, that they can start to see, oh, this can be a reality for me too. This is possible, and it seems like this is within the realm of possibility. A whole host of people who you may share the information about different resources and connection points, but kind of back to the question that the lady in the park asked, well, but how does this lead to me getting a job? Especially when you've experienced trauma after trauma after trauma, it doesn't seem like this is a possibility for you until you start to see somebody else who has maybe experienced some of those different kinds of things and see, oh, okay, if so-and-so was able to do it, that I go to church with, or that I live next to, or that I know from some other capacity, then it starts to become a reality. So we've been trying to do a lot more work with community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, and recognizing that kind of mentality of the power of celebration. Can we celebrate people who are pursuing these different kinds of avenues and be intentional about that, to recognize how different populations are able to hear that message and connect with it, particularly, as I mentioned, people who have experienced so much trauma for a wide variety of reasons. And I think we have to be especially intentional about all of that, as everyone has now collectively experienced the trauma of a pandemic. And how do we address that and be intentional about celebrating people in a way to communicate the opportunity, so it mitigates that sort of self-doubt that, oh, this isn't a reality for me. But I think it takes that intentionality that we're still on the learning journey ourselves of, well, how do we best do that? And who can best do that? And that I find it all fascinating too, because you all know this, I'm a nerd. And so I just think the understanding the moving pieces of a system are interesting. But then the relationships of how all of those things connect to ultimately be able to serve people.
Clarence, I think you've been trying to ask a message. Clarence, is that right?
He gets the blue box around his.
Yeah, I know.
We're halfway there.
Clarence, did you have a question we're going to ask?
No, I did not.
Okay. Anybody else have a question?
This is Lance Warner. I had a question.
Go ahead, Lance.
I was wondering, Blair, what are your thoughts about the minimum wage in Indiana, and how does that affect our workforce?
Sure. I think that, minimum wage has an important role to play, but sometimes there are, its effectiveness can sometimes be overinflated. And so I think it's important to look at wage data, and there are, important conversations to be had with various employers and industry areas to understand competitiveness of various wages, and we see that play out on a pretty regular basis. I say that minimum wage has an important role because and I'm trying to think like how I best communicate all these different pieces. Like it has to be tailored to be appropriate for the economy. And that's where I think there are some questions and conversations can get challenging because of the impact that it can have, that when set at levels, you can start to move people out of workforce opportunities and career opportunities because of artificial types of influences that may impact people's ability to access that first job. That minimum wage often influences the wages that get set because it's at that minimum level. And so it's an important part of a conversation, but it can't be the only part of a conversation, is I guess what I would say to that is that, and it has to be tailored in those discussions to recognizing the economy of either a community, a region, a state, that as it is evaluated, that then that those conversations are had in a space where you're looking at a lot of different factors, not just the minimum wage.
Thank you. Katie, were you going to ask a question? You got to unmute your mic. Unmute your mic, Katie.
I saw Dr. Roberts had a question first, so if she wants to go first.
Okay.
Oh, thanks. Love the talk, Blair. You're always doing such amazing things. So I really enjoyed your talk, and your new resources, amazing as well. So definitely going to share that and put that on the website and share it with our admissions counselor. But I've been thinking about, and we've been having several conversations at IU Northwest about access. So, we have these wonderful and why aren't people accessing or using the, the resources that are out there? We have these wonderful resources, but, we found that we still have a lot of people that don't even have internet access, right? So K through 12, higher ed, jobs, I know this might be beyond your scope of what you're doing, but is there any conversations or anything, going on that can help with that issue? Because that's a huge one. It's a huge one for us.
Absolutely. And I know a little bit more, although I'm not the expert, but I do know a little bit more because I had a lot more questions that came about, particularly after that experience of going out to distribute food, that we were in some different neighborhoods and we're, giving out these food boxes. And I asked somebody, I said, where are the kids? I haven't seen any kids around here. I see a lot of adults, but where are the children? And the response I was given was, well, they're in doing e-learning because school had just started around that time frame. They're in doing e-learning. And I'm looking around at some of these neighborhoods is like, no, they're not. I don't know where they are. Or maybe they're doing e-learning someplace else, I guess. But some of these places that I'm seeing, they don't have a door. You're trying to convince me that they've somehow got internet connection in there? No. And the impact that has for generations is especially now with what we've seen of the importance that connectivity has played in our economy in the midst of a pandemic. So I think internet connectivity is a huge piece of the opportunity equation for people moving forward from an education standpoint, a talent standpoint, commerce for industry, so many different aspects. And what I've learned is that connectivity conversation can go in a lot of different directions because there's questions about just the infrastructure itself of people being able to have access to the types of providers in an affordable capacity, the different types of technology that can be deployed through fiber, through Wi-Fi types of things. I just had a chance to share with some of the Economic Development Association about a really cool thing that's happening in the Lafayette area that the Wabash Heartland Innovation Network is, in fact, I think they're supposed to do it this month, that they're launching a thing called an aerostat, and it's like a blimp. And the military has done this for many years, but they're launching this blimp that'll be on a 500-foot tether with some different types of transmitter pieces to be able to provide some connectivity. Now that's a very rural area, and so they're specifically targeting rural applications, so they don't have the density that an urban population would have for some connectivity, which is why I say that conversation goes in a lot of different directions because of the technology components, the who you're trying to serve aspect of things. What I've learned from Scott Rudd, who is the director of broadband initiatives for the state, is that he says, first thing is that you have to have organization around somebody who's going to lead the charge, whether it's a community, whether it's a region, whether it's a county. Somebody's got to step up and say, I'm going to be the leader for this group to be able to figure out what our solution needs to be. And then from there, you can start to organize around, well, what do we need to be doing from an infrastructure standpoint, from a connectivity of like just the devices themselves. So, let's say that you get an aerostat up in the air, you got to have everybody to have the devices to use it. And then there's the next piece of like, okay, let's say you get the aerostat, and I'm using the aerostat because it's a whiz-bang initiative that I think is fascinating. And they're the only place in the country, maybe the world, that is doing this. So I think it's fascinating. But it's an option. There's a whole host of different types of technology that can be deployed. Once you get through all of that, then do people know how to use the devices and the different types of software that would be included in all of it? So step one I'm understanding is making sure that there's somebody that's leading the collective charge for the community, county, region, and then you kind of go from there. And Scott Rudd is a great resource to be able to connect up with, and so I'm happy to provide contact information there. Or Purdue Center for Research Development out of Lafayette is doing a lot of really interesting things on making communities broadband ready, that they can assist there as well. So happy to make any connection points that folks would be looking to have there as well.
Okay, any other questions?
I think Katie had one.
And I don't want you to have to go into too much detail on this, but, as you think about talent attraction for the state and, maybe looking in your crystal ball or looking at your data trends, what do you see the high demand occupations, or at least the industries that you guys are struggling with the most? And what are some of the ideas around attracting not only people to those careers, but attracting talent into the state and growing and retaining talent in the state?
Well, I'll try and do this quickly because I know everybody's got exciting things to do. And the other challenges, I get really excited about all these things. So I'll try not to go into too much detail. But, this is why I talk about the talent system, because it's never just one thing. It's not just attracting talent. You also have to be able to develop talent into these different opportunities and make the connection points. So I think about the talent system around attraction, development, and connection. Retention is also in there with the connection piece. And, the attraction aspect of things is, I think, being mindful of, when people have the choice as to where they're going to engage, are they choosing Indiana? Are they choosing our communities to want to be a part of? And, what would go into that decision-making process for them? A lot of that then comes back to sort of the built environment of what's their experience in a community? Do they have access for their families to be a part of an engaging school corporation, to go be able to be out and active in the community, and what that experience is from a development standpoint. Are they able to connect up to these career opportunities, which I think kind of goes to your question around, are people aware of what the opportunities are? In many ways, I don't think they are yet, because they keep changing, and thus where there's the need for our employer community to be able to better connect with our educators on, these are the types of careers that we have available and the skill sets that we would need for someone to be successful in them. I say they keep changing because technology keeps influencing that. Demographic changes keep influencing that. Thus why it's so important for having greater partnership between our businesses and our schools, whether it's K-12 or whether it's, higher education, deeper connections there, so that then people see what those opportunities are and are then getting the skills to be able to take advantage of them. From a larger standpoint of, call it the 100,000-foot view of, where's the future of work for Indiana? We still have a very strong manufacturing base, and you may hear terms talked about of things like Industry 4.0, and that's kind of looking at the automation influence for our manufacturing base. And there's tremendous growth that's happening in our manufacturing base. It's just changing the types of tasks that people are doing in those different types of jobs, so that it requires different skill sets that are a lot more based around critical thinking and problem solving, and being able to change codes and things on computers that are doing different parts of that process that are now being automated. So on a larger sense of what are the future of work type of industry areas, I think it's digitalization aspects, artificial intelligence, the software development. I think healthcare and life sciences also is continuing to have a lot of growth opportunities. And Indiana is well positioned to take advantage of a lot of where industry trends are going, especially in the manufacturing sector. But it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're developing, attracting, and connecting the talent to be able to take advantage of where the future of work is headed. So.
Okay, I think, first of all, I'd like to say that this meeting is recorded and will be available online tomorrow. The link will be on our website or our Facebook page. So if you got anything that you want to review, go ahead. We got time for one more question, and Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, it's not a question. We're ending up our meeting, and so I was taking the role of Sergeant of Arms today. So I want to say that typically in a place where we would meet all together, we would be collecting money. And what I want to say to you, if you enjoyed and appreciated Milo's presentation today, if you could go to our Rotary webpage and make a donation for Rotary, or better yet, Rotary Foundation. We're also, remember, we're striving for every Rotarian every year. We don't really have time for a program, but I would like to lead us in a dismissal prayer. It's a little different than what we usually do, where we have a prayer before the meeting. And so if you would just take a moment and pray with me a prayer for our country. Almighty God, who has given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech you that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of your favor and glad to do your will. Bless our land with honorable industry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties and fashion us into one united people. Endue with the spirit of wisdom those to whom in your name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that, through obedience to your law, we may show forth your praise among the nations of the earth. In the time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and in the day of trouble, suffer not our trust in you to fail. All which we ask through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. This is coming from the Episcopal Church Book of Common Prayer. Thank you for your patience as we consider our prayers for our country.
Thank you, Matt.
So I have one question. Is Kara still in the room, or did she leave?
I think she has left.
Okay. I'm going to, one last thing. Since I'm in charge of Sergeant of Arms, our Sergeant of Arms volunteer list has gotten a bit thin. If you would at all be interested in being Sergeant of Arms for a week, let me know, and I'm going to kind of reorganize our Sergeant of Arms schedule.
All right, Matt. Thank you. Blair, I would like to thank you very much. It was a great talking we had from you today. And you're welcome to join our Rotary meetings at any time that you'd like to. And I really appreciate what you've done. And I'd like to say to everybody, at this point in time, since we're really running over time a little bit here, I'd like to say thanks to everybody for coming, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.